A new Sonic game is out with SonicXShadow Generations, and you guys know I love my boss battles. Sometimes I like to do rankings beyond Nintendo, and I've definitely done Sonic games in the past with Frontiers and even Sonic Colors, but today we are moving up to SonicXShadow Generations and ranking every single boss in the entire game. This includes the Sonic mode and the Shadow mode as well. However, I'm also including the bosses from the 3DS version of the game that came out so long ago. There's a couple original bosses in that game and repeats just done in a different way, so they will be included in their own spots on this list. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. Stop what you're doing, make sure you leave a like and subscribe. A lot of you watching are not yet subscribed. Let's see if we can beat our past videos goal, getting over 100 unique subscribers to this video. So I want to appreciate every single one of you guys watching this today. But let's get into all the bosses in Sonic Generations ranked from worst to best. Starting off this list, I'm pretty much combining all the Hedgehog races into one category because they all work primarily the same. You're racing another Hedgehog, whether it be Metal Sonic, Shadow, or Silver, and instead of battling them at all, you're simply just racing them to the goal. They can attack you with certain attacks, but that's really about it. Your main objective is to seriously just beat them in a race, and I feel like this is pretty much not a boss battle. It just simply felt like a race, or a regular stage in the game, so unfortunately I am not going to rank them that high. Next up, I have what I believe to be one of the worst bosses in SonicXShadow Generations is the final boss of Sonic's story, being Time Eater. This boss, oh boy. It's just a depressing boss fight. When I played this when I was younger, I remember absolutely hating it, and revisiting it today, it's just as bad as I remember. It's a shame that they didn't really fix anything about this fight at all with this remaster. I mean, they should have just completely redone it, especially with Shadow's version being so much better. This is just boring and miserable. You're seriously just boosting forward the entire time, whether you're in 3D or 2D, and you're dodging like the same two attacks, and you have to hear everybody scream over and over again, "Here comes a homing attack."
It's like that shot chases you!
That shot will track you.
Looks like a homing shot! Looks like a homing shot! That looks like a homing shot!
I mean, yeah, it's repeated every 5 seconds, and most of it is because it's one of his only attacks are these really slow homing drills that it sends at you. The other attacks including hand swipes that occasionally come out of portals to try to swipe you out the way, but overall, it's just so mediocre. I mean, seriously, it's a dreadful thing to play over and over again if you're trying to get an S rank, so thankfully I was able to get it on my first try, but man, this is the worst. I mean, you spend the entire time just trying to catch up to it, which sometimes feels like it's impossible, and it's just random if you catch up sometimes, and you'll just chuck classic Sonic out occasionally to block some things that are coming towards you. You don't even have to push anything to attack, you just continuously charge until the target appears, and you don't even do anything when that happens. You just keep charging until you reach the core. And after playing pretty much every Sonic game ever, I'm not over exaggerating when I say this is one of the worst Sonic boss fights ever, and one of the worst final boss fights in video games. Well, it doesn't get much better at number 14, where we have Big Arm. No, seriously, that's the name of this boss. With classic Sonic, you're battling Dr. Eggman in probably one of the most underwhelming robotics ever. It's just this giant orb with giant fist, and all you have to do is dodge his very slow punching attacks, whether he's on the right side of the pillar or the left side. You keep moving around and just attack the main body of the machine when it comes over. At least it's a somewhat of a fight compared to the others on this list, but man, it's really just not that good. I know this one is probably going to make some people mad, but I did not like this Sonic vs. Shadow boss fight. I felt like it was just a hold boost and move forward fight. Your job is to take out these giant rocks in order to bump them into Shadow, but your main goal is just to reach the chaos energy before Shadow does. It's that simple. You reach it twice, you get a super dash where you just chase Shadow down and pretty much slowly run him over. It's incredibly quick. You can beat this in about a minute or so, and it just doesn't really feel like a fight. It's just like this long race where Shadow's not even putting up a fight every time I replayed this. And I replayed it multiple times to see if maybe I just was really good my first time, and no, it's just a very basic concept, and I wish there was more of an actual fight to this, like a part 2 after this phase, but nope, this is the end of the battle. Number 12, we have Metal Sonic. I feel like this one was just executed a little bit better than Shadow's, where it's not just a race, but it's actually a battle. You have to actually physically attack Metal Sonic when his weak point is exposed, where the entire time he'll chase you flying around the stage, doing different electrical attacks that you have to either jump over or get underneath, and I actually found this to be somewhat mildly entertaining, and even having to hurry up and catch up and knock Metal Sonic down when he slows down in front of you. Like I said, this one just felt like an actual boss fight where I had to manage my speed levels, whether I sped up or slowed down, and I really like the ending where he just boots Metal Sonic into the background like far off and it just explodes. It's just a great ending to a pretty decent boss battle. Number 11, we have the first boss of Sonic Generations being Death Egg Robot. It's nowhere near as in-depth as the actual boss battle from classic Sonic days, but this one still gets the job done, at least somewhat, for a first battle of the game. The first phase is incredibly easy, where all you have to do is dodge his slow-moving hands and get behind him when he jumps up in the air in order to knock him down by smacking him in the robotic booty. It's the second phase that actually has a little bit more to it, where you actually have to have him shoot his own hands into these bombs that appear on these platforms, and then climb your way up in order to jump into his hand, which then lets you roll to his head, allowing you to attack it, which isn't anything difficult at all, but it is a little cinematic, and I do like the vibes of the 2D stage kind of moving around a 3D plane. Like I said, it's really nothing super interesting or entertaining, and not as good as the original Death Egg Robot, but it definitely is better, in my opinion, than the others on this list. Number 10, we have Perfect Chaos, and this boss battle feels more along the lines of a really cool level, if anything, with a giant boss trying to attack you throughout the level. It's really fun to dash around throughout the city and find quicker paths to reach Perfect Chaos, but overall, to attack him, you just dash into him, and then it swims up automatically and hits him for you, so you really don't have to do a lot of attacking, which limits how fun this boss battle can be. This could be a lot more fun if there was another phase when you get to the top, but there is a phase 2 in this actual boss battle where Chaos will actually raise all these different platforms, and you will have to platform all the way to the very end in order to attack the antenna on top of his head. It doesn't really add anything extremely special to the fight, but it is very cinematic, and it is fun to travel all the way to the end of the floating debris. Number 9, we have the Egg Emperor. But instead of its 3D counterpart boss battle in Sonic Heroes, this time it's mainly in 2D. Well, entirely in 2D like this game is, because yeah, modern Sonic never did feel like modern Sonic in this game, but nevertheless, your job is to take out these cannons until it charges you, and then you can take him out, which will then put you on a separate outside track, which is supposed to replicate the long chase down sequence in Sonic Heroes. It's pretty cool. You can jump over the horizontal beams and you have to slide under the vertical ones, but overall, you can just dash into some of these beams and jump and they won't even deal damage to you, so it's not really that challenging at all. But I do like how there's two separate phases that this boss battle switches in and out of. It's a fun boss battle, but it's nowhere near as in-depth as the Sonic Heroes version, so it's just okay in my book. Silver the freaking Hedgehog. Coming in at number 8, this one kind of pains me because I thought it was really well made, and I thought out of all the Hedgehog battles, this one was definitely the best one. But the problem is, I had this really big issue towards the end of the fight, and I'll get there when I get there. But first off, the attacks are really fun from Silver. He has different projectiles that he'll throw at you, like lasers, and even cars that he'll chuck at you that you can actually homing attack in order to reach him, or just jump on top of and run across in order to smack him out of the sky. He has lots of unique attacks that change up the fight a lot, and there's lots of debris on the road that you'll also have to sideswipe in order to get out of the way, or you'll just trip over. Yeah, you can pretty much just boost through everything, but eventually you will run out of boost, so it's best that you just learn how to sidestep properly. But yeah, there's just lots of variety with his attacks that changed up a lot, and I actually found the whole battle being very engaging, even for it being a longer one in this game. But it's the ending that absolutely killed this fight for me. For some reason, I kept getting hit by his giant ball of debris. I'd run out of boost, or even if I just didn't boost at all, he would just always get caught up by the ball before I could even reach Silver for some reason, and I don't understand how this was ever a thing. This happened to me like 6 or 7 times in a row, where I dodged every attack, I never got hit by anything, and the only thing I could possibly do was just save all my boosts and pretty much not use it for the entire fight, and save it for the last section, which I'm like, there's no way that's what you're supposed to do. I've seen some people online say they didn't need boost at all, and I watched gameplay of them just speed up automatically, and it's never happened for me. I don't know if I'm the only one that's having this problem, but definitely let me know in the comments down below if you did as well. Number 7, we have the original Biolizard fight from Sonic Generations on the 3DS. This was actually the exact same fight, just kind of recreated, but unfortunately we're playing with Sonic and not Shadow, which just feels strange. It still has the same attacks like jumping and ducking under the orbs in order to grind rail up to the button on the top of its back, and it even has a section where you're in a 2D area having to homing attack all the way up the orbs in order to reach its back, and it even has the floating section from the original, which is the closest you're going to get to a 3D Sonic stage in this game. But I really do like the callbacks to the original game, and it's fun to navigate your way through the floating space maze section until you reach the button, but overall, an awesome recreation of an awesome boss battle. battle. Number 6, we have the 3DS version of Time Eater, which is a lot better of a version than the home console version. This time, you're quickly dodging attacks and moving out of the way at the last second, and actually have a lot better control over Sonic in Classic Sonic, and this time it's so much easier to reach the boss because he comes towards you instead of you having to fly across the literal nations of the globe in order to reach him. I will say overall it's nothing extremely special, but it still works really well. There's lots of different attacks to dodge other than the same homing missiles over and over again, and there's lots of unique ways you can dodge them, moving forward, backwards, quick stepping pretty much as Super Sonic. I feel like it's a lot more smoother with the transitions from 2D to 3D, and it just works a lot better here. But mostly it's the attacks here, as they're actually fun to dodge and they make sense. When he slows down time, it's not for nothing. You actually have to dodge specific clocks as they're coming towards you and watch out for the hands that are moving. It's a real shame that they didn't incorporate at least some of these changes into the remaster, but nevertheless, the 3DS version still reigns supreme, even so many years later. Coming down to the final 5. At number 5, we have what should be the true final boss of Sonic's portion of this game, being Egg Dragoon from Sonic Unleashed. This boss battle is actually done really well. There's not too many areas where it glitches or messes up or does something stupid that you can't get out of. It all runs really well, and there's multiple ways to attack. You can take the grind rails in a 3D section and run into him, which is pretty cool, or you can attack him in the 2D sections, where he'll flip the screen entirely and then drop these 2 giant walls that you can actually wall jump side to side and dodge the ice beams in order to hit them at the end, which is a really cool segment in my opinion. I think the only thing that makes this a little bit lower on this list than where it could be is the fact that his attacks never really land. I mean, most of his attacks are very slow homing rockets.
That looks like a homing shot!
The beams he shoots at you in the 3D section, you can clearly just scoot over out of the way, and in the 2D section, you do little hops over each one. It's really not a big problem. There's also a pretty cool skydiving section where he's constantly shooting rockets up at you, and you have to dodge them by skydiving straight down. Now, the thing with this is, once again, it's not that difficult because all you have to do is hold the dive button, and you'll probably never get hit by any of the attacks, but it still looks really cool nevertheless. Coming in at number 4, and the very first boss of the Shadow portion of the game, we have the Biolizard, which is a direct callback to Sonic Adventure 2's boss battle, and it even starts off the same exact way, moving forward and backwards until eventually it stops to shoot giant plasma orbs at you that you have to jump over. I wish there was some that you had to slide under too. That would have been really awesome, just like the original, but overall it still works the same way and it's really fun. I love how it did this for only the first portion of the battle, and then eventually it transforms to something entirely new. You will grow these weird hands made out of plasma energy and also like pieces of pipes and wires, and it will cause shockwaves on the ground where you have to jump over and start attacking the arms, which then, just like the original game, you'll have to homing attack the orbs in order to make your way all the way up to the giant switch on its back. I overall thought for a first boss battle of Shadow's story, this was done so extremely well, and it also incorporated some challenge that I was a massive fan of. It then will tie itself to the wall where you have to run around throwing doom spears in order to take out all the orbs that are flying towards you, which is actually incredibly easy, but it looks really cool. And Shadow's boss battles are all about feeling and looking cool in the process, and I really love how you can slow down time in order to knock back this giant spear into it, and then still homing attack your way all the way to the top on top of him in order to finish him off. This was such a really well done first boss battle for Shadow's story. Coming in at number 3, we have the final boss of the Shadow story being Devil Doom. This one is kind of a cultivation of all the things that you've done throughout your entire journey. It ties in a little portion of every single boss that you fought up until now using all your Doom abilities, and naturally you would think with all of the past bosses being referenced, this one would clearly be number 1. Not necessarily, because, I don't know, to me it did a really good job for a final boss battle, but it was like small portions of the Doom abilities being used. Doom Surf felt like a better version of Egg Dragoon, actually allowing you to do damage in multiple different areas and different ways that you can attack the giant Devil Doom as well. Most of the time you'll be flipping around in the water in order to reflect debris back at him, but also you can jump on grind rails or rainbow rings in order to blast all the way to him and start wailing on his eyeball. But Phase 2 is where I feel like it's going to lose a lot of people. With Doom Morph, this is just a weird ability, and it has its quirks throughout the game where it feels a little weird to use, and it's the same thing here. It might be a little bit of a hassle to make your way all the way to the end by using all the Doom Morph swinging around like Donkey Kong, but overall it's not terrible here, and I personally didn't have too much of a problem, but it did get annoying on certain jumps. And then for a final phase, he transforms into Neo-Devil Doom, where you then get Doom wings, allowing you to fly through the air, and you're essentially doing the same thing that you did with the Surf, flipping left and right in order to reflect things right back at it until charging into his actual eye. This felt like a more proper chase sequence, unlike Time Eater, and it was okay. Overall, you're just spending a lot of the time just dodging things or getting stuck in the stupid Doom vortex thing, but overall, yeah, you're just dashing towards the eyeball and wailing on it when you have the opportunity. Number 2, we have Mephiles, making a grand return from the beloved Sonic 06, but this time it's handled so much better than that game's boss battle. This one actually makes sense. Your job is just to dodge Mephiles until you have the ability to jump into Doom Morph. Then you have to chase him down in order to knock him out of the purple liquid. And I love this section how you're just beating the absolute life out of Mephiles, knocking him into the air and then slinging him into a pillar nearby, until smacking him into the ground with a satisfying slap. I mean, it's just pure movie the video game. Eventually, he'll raise these pillars and fly high up into the sky with his different clones flying around as well. You have to climb up the purple pillar and swing your way up to the top, which is nowhere near as difficult and as wonky as the final boss battle for Shadow. And then you can take out all his clones at the top before finally taking out Mephiles and bringing him to the ground, where then he will transform into this giant abomination. Your job is to swim around and break his shield with Doom Morph by charging into it multiple times until you can take him out himself, and then you'll be surrounded by his clones. To me, this is not only one of the coolest sequences in the game, but in Sonic in general. Freezing time and taking out all the clones takes you straight into an action cutscene where Shadow's just throwing Doom Spears at all of them in slow motion. It's just one of the coolest looking scenes. Generally, this is a masterpiece. Who would have thought that one of the best bosses in the entire game comes from one of the worst Sonic games in history? Definitely not me, but I am so appreciative of it. But man, it was so close between Mephiles and obviously my number 1 pick being Metal Overlord. I felt like, yes, Mephiles had so much cinematic greatness with its great gameplay, but Metal Overlord was just so much fun to play overall. Most of the battle, you'll be in the Doom Surf mode, where you'll need to switch left and right in order to knock debris into it in order to damage it. But there's lots of different sections, once again, just like Egg Dragoon and even Devil Doom, where you can hit grind rail sections in order to boost into it for extra damage. But outside of knocking debris into him, there's also other ways that you can damage him, hitting certain boost pads or certain areas, or even freezing down time in order to fly into it was so satisfying, and it was something that was really different and broke up how you fought the boss. There's even a really demanding section where you had to jump in order to dodge his giant tail whips, which actually got increasingly difficult every time he swung his tail. This boss battle was by no means a walk in the park, and honestly, I could see it being one of the most difficult ones in the entire game. And then for phase 2, it switches into a 2D section, which is so cool because there's multiple things happening here. You have to reflect things right back at him like missiles by jumping over some or going underneath others. There's also segments where you'll be playing volleyball pretty much with him, where he'll shoot a giant blue crystal at you and you have to knock it back and forth, all Ganondorf style from Ocarina of Time. It's also one of the only boss battles outside of the Biolizard that utilizes Doom Spears in a great way, holding them down in order to release a montage at a giant ship with rockets on board flying towards you, which then you can use that same fairy debris to knock it into Metal Overlord. This was a truly great battle all around, but honestly, I could easily see somebody replace this one with Mephiles because they were both so well made. Both of these are done so well with giant cinematic set pieces and amazing ways to attack them all. I truly do love the bosses in the Shadow portion of this game. I just wish Sonic's bosses were a lot better. But thank you so much for tuning in. Definitely let me know in the comments down below. Do you agree with my picks? Do you disagree? And let me know why. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe before you head out. And like always, I'll see you all on the next one. See you guys.